Boom! We are live. What's going on, everybody? My name is Shane Fazen, joined by self-defense guru Tony Blauer. What was that shrug? I feel like you don't like the word guru?
It's. I make fun of people who I know it's a term of endearment, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
Pioneer, self-defense pioneer. Tony Guru. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what to expect in today's Q&A.
Well, hopefully most of the people watching this saw the other piece you did, and I don't have to go because I'll talk for like a half an hour.
Yeah.
You know, I was born in a log cabin and raised by wolves and all that. That's not true. But basically, super short answer is I have been exploring self-defense since my teens, looking for something. You know, I wrestled, I boxed, I did taekwondo, and I was looking for something that answered my questions about fear and understanding situational awareness and stuff like that. And I believe that the answer was in martial arts.
Right.
And no matter what I did or how good I got at the stuff, I still felt there was like a void, that I felt that there was something missing. And what I discovered years later is we never talked about to our students about the psychology of fear and how to manage fear. There was an assumption, and again, you know, we don't not teach stuff on purpose, and we can't teach what we don't know. Does that make sense?
Of course, yeah.
And so all my instructors, and I had really good instructors, what they taught was what they were taught. So if I asked a question, and here's a great example, I would always ask, what do you do if the guy's got a gun? And you've been asked that, right? Mm-hmm. And do you remember asking your instructor that question at some point?
Yeah.
And what was his answer?
Well, he would say, here, hold the
Okay.
gun here, and step one, do this, redirect the barrel.
But so was there anything that they told you philosophically about a guy with a gun? Did you ever hear this? Because this is all I ever heard was, what's in your wallet that's worth your life? Just give the guy your money.
Right.
Did you ever hear that sort of stuff?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
So you would learn the moves, but the first thing somebody told you was just cooperate with the guy's got a gun.
Right.
And so my students used to ask that question too. And guess what I said to them? So when I started teaching, always somebody, and we've got a bunch on Facebook and a bunch on YouTube, what do you do if a guy's got a gun? And my answer back in the 80s, so this is how long I've been doing this stuff, my answer back in the 80s was, what's in your wallet that's worth your life? Just give the guy your wallet.
Yeah.
And I realized one day, and I don't know why, that I was just regurgitating what my instructor had said, that I didn't really know what to do if a guy had a gun.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the mechanics of, and we can do some gun disarms after. So, and here's the whole thing is this, is I could show you some cool gun disarms, but if I don't teach you how to make the decision to make the move, what's at risk, when should you do it? Bad guys only want property, body, or life. What are you reading? Are they concealing their identity? What's the backdrop? If a round goes off, you know, what's behind you? What, you know, is it a real gun? Is it a fake gun? Are there multiple assailants? And so nobody ever talked about that stuff. Every fixation was just on, here's the angle of your foot when you do a kick. Remember having your toes up like this, or side kick like this, or get your hands here, right? I've been doing it for like a couple of years. So, but you guys get what I'm saying? Is like the fixation was always on the physical. Anyways, long story short, my obsession started, and I talked about this in our first meeting, when my student lost a fight, and being a very passionate coach. And I think a lot of people misunderstand my passion and think that I'm criticizing them, but I'm so passionate about your safety, about her safety, about everyone out there's safety, that I'll say things like, that won't work, don't do that. And people go, whoa, he's saying that my style won't work. What I'm talking about is in the moment of truth, there's no evidence that what we practice right there works. We know there's evidence that airbags work, but there's not a lot of evidence that this driving technique helped you avoid that accident, going back to my airbag metaphor.
Right. Now, speaking of the airbag, the SPEAR, which stands for?
Spontaneous protection, enabling accelerated response.
Okay, and what that is, I'm going to preface it, but I want you to elaborate before we take our first question in the Q&A. I'm sure there's a ton coming through. Is pretty much weaponizing the flinch, right? So this is if you come face to face with someone who's threatening you, they wind up and throw a punch. It's what you said is a fetal response. It's caveman. It's just back in the day. It's just that the shoulders come up, the hands want to come up and protect the face, and you shoot your fingers out as you extend your arms. Elaborate on that a little bit for those watching.
Yeah. So, and I just the whole start of flinch thing started by accident in the 80s. It was during a drill called the sucker punch drill, and again, always exploring. Almost that I love the term forensics. You know, like a forensic level exploration where we create a drill that goes, okay, we got this here, but what happens if we move to this distance, and what happens to this part of our decision-making loop, and so on and so forth. And so I set up this drill that allowed one of my better students, who's a really good boxer, to just hit me whenever he wanted during a conversation, though.
Okay.
So imagine you and I spar, and you light my face up, and I got a mouse under my eye, and my lips are, bleeding, and I'm so good. We're boxing, and you're kicking my ass, right? Because you've been boxing and Thai boxing, and then I go, okay, that was your arena. Let's go to my arena, Shane. And now what we're going to do is we're going to sit here like this, and we're going to talk. And I go, listen, man, I told you got to stay away from my girlfriend. And we're here all of a sudden, wham, like the shot comes out of here while we're like, where's your lops out, bongs out pants? Where's your bottom weak? Where's your... So what we did is we changed how we were standing, how we were sitting. We would do things in a car. We would do things against a chair or leaning against a wall. Because what I was looking for, and I always say this, is I ended up creating out of passion for making people safer, the system I wish somebody had taught me when I was 12.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so out of that exploration and that forensic study, I go, well, like, why isn't this working over and over again? When we do it at this distance and I go, okay, I'm ready, I can go block, I can do this, I can do that. Yeah. And that's how you need to practice, right? So people think, and I always qualify this, is people think I've got to, that I'm putting down all these modalities. And I'm just saying, listen, there's a sport protocol to develop skill set. And you got to do reps, you got to do controlled reps, you got to do cooperative reps. That's working on position, right? Yeah. And then there's looking at the street, and there's a whole different exploration there. And that's where, where I had been doing scenario A, and then when my student lost, I went, now we're doing stuff wrong. Out of exploration, that was 1980. In around 87, 88 was when I did the sucker punch drill. And I'm watching the video after, and I noticed that if we're here like this, and you go to back fist me in the face, go. I go, oh shit. My startle flinch was faster than me trying to do this reaction in the real world. And if somebody goes, man, wow, and he does that sort of thing to you, the only thing that's going to save you is your survival system that went, I got a bad feeling. And you're picking up this when potential energy becomes, that's so good. Stand by. I don't know how to do that.
You need to put it on Do Not Disturb.
Too late.
That's all right.
Sorry, Facebook.
It's live, it's real.
It was just my lawyer calling. And it really was. So the whole idea is that in a real confrontation, so if we're sparring, we've agreed to fight, so there's what we call consent and preparation. If there's consent and preparation, you have awareness. If you have awareness, I know what time I'm fighting, I know what weight class, I know where. What I'm doing now is I'm doing fear management based on the known. Fear management based on the unknown is a completely different animal.
Right.
You don't have time to breathe, to throw up in a bucket, to loosen up, right? And you don't know maybe the angles or the protocols or the, it was like we talked about, when Mike Tyson introduced biting in clinching with Holyfield, Holyfield's response to that was start a flinch.
Jump 6 feet in the air.
Like this, push away danger and everything. Right. That's what tore the year, was actually him flinching and pushing Tyson off of it. It wasn't a technical move. And so when I started exploring this, I realized, holy shit, your cognitive brain, where you hold all of your training, if he does this, I'll do that, awareness, consent, preparation, that gets bypassed. And this is neuroanatomy, guys. This is like brain science, right?
Yeah.
And so the startle flinch was basically this, is that when I'm getting ready for a fight, the potential energy and kinetic energy relationship is very telegraphic. You can tell when someone's going to throw a spinning back fist.
Right.
If you understand body language, I can watch a fight and I can go, here comes a back kick.
Right.
And then boom, there's a back kick, right? You can see that body language, but everyone's agreed to be in the ring or the octagon or wherever at that point, and they're trained, and supposedly their skills equal, and now it's going to be, a mental battle.
Now, is it just the ability to throw a sneak attack when you're not prepared? Right, the bell rings, two fighters come out to the center of the ring, and they start throwing jabs.
This is interesting, and I don't know if this is where you're going, but anytime somebody gets sucker punched in a boxing match or an MMA fight, what happens? They get fucking hit perfectly clean, and sometimes the fight ends, that guy gets disqualified, but the guy throws a cheap knee or a late elbow or hits the guy in the back of the head or hits him on a break.
Right.
And it stuns a guy and maybe sets up the end of the fight. Even though it's a disqualification, everything, that's an interesting thing to think about. That when even though they knew we were fighting, our adrenaline was going, the bell goes like Pavlov's dog, I drop my hands, boom, you hit me, you're pissed off, you throw it late, and it drops people. No one's ever asked that, and I've never thought about it this way, because this is kind of deep, where here's a professional gladiator that gets hit late by, let's say, Mayweather, that classic, right? And he's done, where he went rounds before taking the shots. The brain is amazing what it does at that level.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's where you're going.
No, I think we were introduced at a very interesting point in my life, because I was having similar thoughts that you were having back in the 80s. It was, we learned the jab, we learned defense, we learned slips and rolls and everything that we see in UFC fights, MMA, boxing, whatever. But when it comes down to it, there's a ref in between you. There's a time limit. I know when the fight is going to be and when it's going to end. The difference between that and a street fight, though, is you never know. There's a possibility of ambush, possibility of someone sneaking up behind you.
Well, consider this, so we ask people, hey, where's the first place that you're hit in a fight? Did we go over that?
We did. I know the answer to this one.
Right. So most people answer, well, in the nose, in the nuts, like they think it was physical. Yeah. And every victim of violence who ever led to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the fight. So the first place you're attacked is actually your emotional system.
The gift of fear.
Right, gift of fear. Right. Gavin DeBecker, great book.
Yeah.
So the first place, but what we do because of cognitive dissonance, because that's like when your brain goes, now this isn't happening to me, I'm going to make this correct. Okay. We shut it down, or we talk about situational awareness. If you have no awareness, you have no chance. If you don't know something's going to happen, how can you prepare for it? Right. But situational awareness, it's not just sufficient. And a lot of people out there just throw around the word situational awareness. You got to improve your awareness, but they don't give you any skills or drills. We went over some really cool ones last time.
Yes.
But situational awareness is clouded, distorted, or ineffective if you don't have self-awareness. If you're not aware of your bias, your arrogance, your conceit. Mm. So now if I go, hey, whatever you do, just don't walk down that street, Manhattan Beach, after 10 o'clock. And you go, whatever, I'm like a fucking boxer, man. I'm a fucking Thai boxer. And then you go down there and three guys, jump you, and because you thought just because you're tough in the ring, you're going to be tough in the street. Right. And people make the mistake realizing that the asocial guy in the street, the person who doesn't give a shit, like that's totally different, because you're a good Samaritan. Most people in martial arts are good people.
Yeah.
Right. It's a whole different world. But and so what I wanted to say is, you said a couple of times, but in the street you could have this ambush. My philosophical approach is that in the street, everything's an ambush, even if it happens slowly. Mm. In other words, you're walking down the street with the wife, and you go, hey, let's get some cash at the ATM. And so you go over there, your hands are occupied, maybe she's holding the dog, and three guys walk over and they go, dude, take some money out for us. And you're like, what?
Yeah. And
you realize it's a shakedown, and there's three guys, and one of them's got his hand in his pocket like this. Yeah. And you're like, fuck, are you doing a spinning hook kick? Are you double legging? Here's what people understand is your brain is going, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Is this real? And then it's going to wrestle with cognitive dissonance. No, this is on camera. We're in public. I heard if you had a dog, you're safe.
Right.
Like your brain juggles all this shit. So like what I've been doing for almost 4 decades, you know, what's that line, sweetie, from Rodriguez? You know, the musician Rodriguez?
Pay your dues.
Yeah.
Like you explain that you overpaid them.
Right. There's a line in the song about you got to pay your dues. And I keep thinking, like I've overpaid my dues in terms of research and analysis, violence that I've experienced, that my family's experienced, where I look at shit and I train. Remember, who's my students? But this is new. This is almost like a full circle where I started off in the martial arts world, and then I got discovered by law enforcement and military in the early 90s, closed my school, and from 1993 to 2017, I haven't taught and spoken to martial artists in a sniper focus like this, other than if you come to my camp once a year, open camp, or if you come to our spear trainer course, you know. But otherwise, I've been just training law enforcement and military, and respectfully, like those are the guys that really fight. All of you and I can run away from a fight. We can hide under a car, behind a tree. Those guys move towards the danger. And what I was able to do over a career, I'm not good at math, 1993 till now is how many years? 24?
24.
24. For 2 decades, I have been getting feedback from people who've been in knife fights, gun fights, multiple assailant fights. So I know what fucking works.
Yeah.
And it's this much. It's not this much. That's the Hicks Law model.
I love it. I love it. So before we take our first question, you were talking about your camp, which is July 8th and 9th.
July 8th and 9th. Are you coming?
I'm this close to coming. We may be filming a movie, so I don't want to say no to that.
Nice. Is that
A boxing movie?
Oh, different than the movie, the street fight movie?
No, another one. Yeah, someone.
Nice.
Same director reached out. He's working on a new project. He said, you know, that may be the potential film
Dude,
dates.
if you can do it, is it going to be a porn?
It is going to be
The all male boxing one.
You wish that.
I was going to say I'd like to work on it. But, no, congrats.
But thank you. But I'll let you know as it gets.
Selfishly, I hope they pick another date so that you can come. Tyrion's going to be there.
This is something. I mean, I never knew it even existed.
Right.
It's going to be a playground for me, so I want to make it. Okay, Marie, any questions from the FightTIPS fans, the underdogs, that we could answer? I have one, but I'm going to wait for the end. I want people to talk more about the spear system and harnessing fear and all that.
We had a question from Brian that asks, what is your advice about presenting yourself to deter an aggressive person from starting a fight?
Okay, cool. So advice on deterring a fight through your physical presentation. So Brian, that's a really interesting question. A lot of my answers, guys, are going to be provocative because I don't like ever giving somebody like memorize this shit.
Right.
Because it's not like buying a ball cap that says one size fits all. And I think that's the problem. Again, I always make this joke, don't hate me, hate the bad guy, because I'll say something like this. That's the problem when you study a style, because the style this is the answer from the style.
Right.
So the jiu-jitsu answer is going to vary from the taekwondo answer is going to vary from the Thai boxing answer. You know, my whole answer is this: are you morally, ethically safe, and are you legally safe? So there are 3 fights in every confrontation. There are 3 fights that take place. One is fight 1. Do I have the courage, the will, the tenacity to move through this danger? Fight 2 is the actual fight between you and the bad guy. And then fight 3 is your conscience and or legal fight. Did I do the right thing?
Right.
Am I getting sued now? Okay, I kicked his ass, but I'm in jail.
Right.
I'm now somebody's wife in jail for like 5 years or whatever. So you want to make sure you win all 3 fights. So my answer to the question is this: force must parallel danger. And we have a motto that those who talk can usually be persuaded to walk. And what that means, if somebody's like posturing, then you want to have a what we call a verbal defuse, a de-escalation strategy that calms and quells and de-escalates. You do this through being nice. It's almost like the line from the original Roadhouse, be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Right.
And again, I'm not going to give you lines to memorize, say this and say this and say that, but we like to adopt, again, body language is 60% of communication. We covered that in our last talk, our first talk.
Yeah.
That if I stand there, like, so if a guy says to me, hey, you're looking at me, and I stand there and I blade and I got a hand up here and I go, hey man, just back off, and I don't want any trouble. And you'll see a lot of guys will do that, man. I don't want any trouble, but they're in a pseudo fighting stance, and their body language is saying, I want to punch you in the face,
right,
or I'm ready to punch you in the face. I would much rather somebody take that position, but hit a little bit open, a little bit more bladed, less bladed, fingers splayed, hands in front of your shoulders, because I can still, from this position, very easily fire a jab, if I'm a striker, very easy fire a palm strike with either hand, very easily, depending on how fast the guy comes on me, I can still shoot down, hit that forearm, sprawl, I can still access my whole arsenal, but my body language says, let's talk.
right.
And so you're trying to calm and quell it. I can always go from, like, if I go, man, come on. And some people, so part two of the question is someone will always say, yeah, but won't that sometimes engender more violence because the guy looks like, you're a pussy, you're afraid.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we explain with that. And if you were thinking that, or anyone else thinking that, if pretend everything you do now is being videoed, because it probably is, right?
Good point.
And so if I'm here like this, and let's say you're the antagonist, and I'm like going, and I go, listen, motherfucker, you stay away from me and my family, wham, and I fucking hit you. And this is just a black and white film, even though you just said, I'm going to kill you tonight, and you threatened my life.
Right.
And I stood up. If that's all you saw was this, and then boom, and hitting the guy, I'm going to have a hard time explaining that I was defending myself.
Right.
But if I was here talking to the guy, and then I moved, I could at least say, well, we were having this conversation, he said this, now it's a whole different arena.
Yeah.
You can always escalate from here, but it's hard to de-escalate from here. And so if it looks like the verbal de-escalation isn't working, and this is kind of deep, and it's almost more of a lesson in part of like what we teach people, and that is, how do you strike from a nonviolent posture? So if I'm here like this, and I'm going, man, I don't want trouble, and I'm like, literally, this is my fighting stance, and I'm thinking, okay, fuck, what I need to watch out for, and I've already like analyzed this. The only thing that Shane can do super, super fast is a quick like uppercut with his right hand or a jab to my nuts. So my movement, I'm like talking to you. See what I just did?
Yeah.
You guys see that? I'm right here. So if he went to punch me in the nuts, as soon as he moved, I'm already checking this.
Right.
Now I'm like, wham, I'm on the guy. I'm out of my chair, but I've already seen all of that while I'm trying to diffuse it. So part of the system is like, before you enter the arena, have you visualized what the guy can do and what you can do, right?
Yeah.
And so this is all part and parcel of the de-escalation, and like just really thinking differently and starting with that whole close weapon, close target. If I'm ready for the most sneaky attack that Shane can throw, then aren't I simultaneously ready for something that's slower and more telegraphic?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
To follow up on that, and this was a question that I had for you, we filmed an hour and 10-minute long video together, and it was a lot to process at the time. I went back and I was editing it, and one of the questions that popped up similar to Brian's was, one of the theories that I have is similar to out in nature and wild, is if you walk up to if a bear comes up to you at your campsite, you're supposed to get real big and real loud and try to scare him. And I've used this in confrontations in the street before, where at first I stayed real calm, he got louder, and then I noticed that he was fueling off of my fear,
Right.
Fear.
Perceived fear, yeah.
Right. So instead of staying here and staying calm, I fought fire with fire, and I got loud and I got big, and I tried to scream twice as loud as him to intimidate him.
Right.
Which worked.
Right.
What's your theory on that?
So it's kind of like what Brian's asking, right?
Yeah.
So like Tony, the scorekeeper, says, and how did that fight turn out? He went away?
Yeah.
Right, so it worked.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that. the danger is while you're posturing, if you're posturing and not ready to move. So again, we're forensically invested in what's happening. And that means, so like when someone says forensics, what they mean as a metaphor is like, I'm in the morgue and I'm trying to find out the cause of death. Like I'm inside the body, I'm inside the brain.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about here with you is the forensics of that. If you go, oh shit, my being nice isn't working, so I'm gonna get twice as loud as him. While you're thinking that, if I punched you in the face, could you have moved? So a lot of people, what they do is they get kind of this brain lock on a strategy. Oh, I'll do this and wham! Like, and so remember what I said earlier is if you have no awareness, you have no chance.
Gotcha.
And so if you're going, you know what, I'm gonna stand up right now and to show this guy I'm serious, I'm gonna pick up the chair and whip it into the wall.
Yeah.
And while I'm visualizing doing that, you tackle me, right? And I'm going, you know, motherfucker, fuck you. And as I do that, I turn around, you hit me twice. I'm going to get hit because I hadn't thought 1 second ahead in the fight. Before you do anything, so the way I teach guys is this, is like when I'm being nice until it's time to not be nice, I've already dropped you. I've already hit you in my mind. I've already done battleship. If you tracking, so
Yeah.
So if someone said to me, go talk to that guy, but he's really dangerous, I would be over here like this, and I go, that's the guy over there that's really dangerous. I go, okay, he's sitting there, his feet are crossed, his hands are crossed, that's cool. And I would walk up, I go, hey man, anyone sitting here? And I would stand behind the chair, right? I have an obstacle. So if you stood up stand up real fast like you're pissed. I go, like, I've already got a fucking chair, I'm ready to hit you. But I didn't accidentally move here. I moved here because I created an obstacle going, hey, is it cool to sit down? And then when I stepped around here, I didn't step around here where you can do some kung fu kick in my nuts, right? And make me flinch and then grab me, right? I step around this way, hey, is it cool to sit down here, man? And I go, hey, listen, I was talking to this guy over here. He said, but look at my hands.
Right.
See where my hands were?
Yeah.
But I wasn't, I didn't go, is it okay to sit down, right? Right, and then come in here. And
Right.
I didn't kung fu step around here. I make it really natural, so I'm like this.
Gotcha.
And then I'm talking, and I'm like, dude, no. But I've got your whole center line occupied.
Right.
And so I'm going, listen, I'm trying to negotiate a settlement. I'm the Kissinger here, my buddy. And you're either doing this or you're going, you tell your fucking friend. And I'm like, oh, this isn't working. Now I might be going, dude, here's what's going to happen if we fight, right?
Right.
But I've already figured out what my preemptive shots are. This is a true story. We had an altercation in a restaurant that I wasn't involved in, but it was just some like nutcase in this restaurant, and he was sitting in this like this with his hands on the table, and he ordered a coffee, and they brought him a coffee, and everyone in the restaurant was like this seats, and 11 people in the restaurant. The tension was insane, and nobody's doing anything, and he made some, like even by today's standards, it was horrific. I don't even want to say it. It was about killing certain types of people and stuff like that. And everyone was like, stop. Shit happens when everyone's eating their eggs and stuff, and everyone goes. So I'm like, I can't fucking not say anything. And what I did was I walked up behind the guy, and there was a lineup against the wall there because it was a first come, first served place. And I lined up behind him, and before I step in to say what I'm going to say in his ear, I've already, so he's sitting here like this, and I see on the table, if this were me, and this fight was on, go, I would see improvised weapon, coffee in the face, elbow to the solar plexus, coffee, elbow, here's a knife and a fork, improvised weapons. And I saw that, and then I moved in and hit a nonviolent posture, which was, I was off to his right side like this, kneeling behind him. This hand was here, this hand was here, and I whispered in his ear, and I said whatever I said to the guy, and I was watching for any movement towards any weapons. And if he was gonna, if he had started to reach for something, boom, right, I was gonna nail him in the brachial, come right around and fucking choke him out and drag him out of the store.
Yeah.
So I had already had the fight. And this is funny, this is like in the 80s. if you think of the recent Sherlock Holmes,
I never saw it.
so in Sherlock Holmes, if you can YouTube this stuff, but Robert Downey like does this. He visualizes where he's going to hit the guy in slow mo, and then the fight happens. So when we saw it, I went, "Oh, that's so fucking cool."
Yeah,
It's the same sort of thing, and so, but this isn't, guys. What I'm showing you right here, like I don't want you to go, "Oh, that's so cool." There's like the whole system that I've created. It's a formula that teaches you how to do this, because I can't be there going, Shane, move 2 inches to the left and get ready for this just in case, right?
Yeah.
You've got to see that stuff. And it's all based on what we call performance psychology. What's his closest weapon, closest target? What's your closest weapon to his closest target? How much danger are you in? Should you be striking here, or should you be grappling here? Should you actually be just avoiding this? What is your verbal defuse here? What do you know about the legalities of this, right? So we're making people think, and that makes you smarter and it makes you safer.
Awesome. Any other questions? That was one question.
There's a lot of good ones. Well, right now the chat's talking a lot about adrenaline and how that factors in, like whether it makes you stronger or if you're too narrow-minded, and does it tire you out, like stamina. So if you could talk about like adrenaline and
so it's an interesting thing, because I got asked that too somewhere on some other Facebook Live thing about adrenaline, and you're sparring somebody who you know is way more experienced, more dangerous. You get the adrenaline dump, fear, and your legs feel like they're 50 pounds each.
Yeah.
Or you're new at fighting, you haven't stress inoculated, you don't have enough reps, and you're like, you got to get your minimum 8 kicks in a kickboxing match. You're not even getting 8 kicks in a 3-minute round.
Yeah.
Like, how's that even possible, right?
Yeah.
But it happens really quickly, and it takes 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So adrenaline can exhaust you, and it can make you stronger. So the correct answer is yes, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it is knowing in advance about this physiology and these changes. So I've met a lot of guys. Again, my main community is although I've worked with a bunch of pro fighters, amateur fighters, my community is law enforcement, military, and a lot of those guys don't understand tunnel vision and tachypsyche when things go into slow. So there's all this survival learning research, what's called, in the community. And so understanding in advance of a confrontation what your physiological and biochemical changes do and what they can feel like can help you embrace or relax that stuff. So if you don't know this, and then you get in a confrontation one day and you go to move and you feel like your legs are like stapled to the floor and they weigh 50 pounds, and then you realize that you have butterflies in your stomach and your palms are shaking, that can freak you out, So I think I told you a story about me growing up skiing. And did we talk about that at all in our first talk?
I don't think so.
So I grew up as a competitive skier, but I sabotaged every race. I never finished. I would always wipe out. I would always ski off the course. I was considered one of the best skiers around. People thought I was going to represent Canada in the Olympics. And I remember wiping out at this really big race. And I remember flashing back when I started teaching. It was really cool. Like 15 years later, I remember the story. I remember 10 minutes before I was going to take off, standing there, we were above the tree line, the wind is howling, he's rubbing my knees trying to keep me warm, and he says, "How do you feel, kid?" And I went, "Great, coach." And I lied to him because I had pissed 5 times already. I wanted to projectile vomit. I was so nervous. And I went down, I skied my ass off, I caught a tip 3 gates from the bottom, wiped out so hard that I actually fell through the finish line. Someone came up to me after and said, "Hey, too bad you fell, kid." I was like 15 or something. "Too bad you fell, kid," because at the point they on a giant slalom, they got all these guys timing you on the way down.
Right.
He said, "At my checkpoint, when you passed me, you were almost a second ahead of the guy that ultimately won the race." And a second, like in a giant slalom race, is like a mile in a car race.
Right.
My point being here is my parents were both in the ski patrol at the highest level. I grew up on skis. I had all these people going, "Oh, you're like amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing." I didn't understand why I was so scared. I was afraid to let my parents down. I was afraid. And here was the question I asked. It's kind of a heavy question. as a 15-year-old, I was thinking, if I'm so good, why am I so scared? Everyone tells me I'm good. Why am I so scared? That's fucking heavy.
It is.
But like, who even? So that was 1975. Even today, what athlete says to their coach, "If I'm so good, why am I so scared?" And what coach actually knows what to say? We're just discovering. There's certain like Kyrian could handle that, right?
Yeah.
There's a handful of coaches. You'll see a corner where the guy goes, "Come on, you want to fucking win this? Get out there! Fuck, he's making you look bad," you know.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, and then there's like a Jackson or a Kyrian who's, you know, we talked about this. You know what to do. Like, and he's in your head. Very few coaches understand performance psychology. Most of them are still teaching like martial artists about the physical. You got to do this. You got to circle more jabs.
Right.
Head movement. You know, and it's like, well, yeah. I remember asking Sugar Ray Leonard after after years of working with Angelo Dundee, he let Angelo Dundee out of his camp. And I asked him after, I said, because I only wanted to know what he, like, I love talking to people who are icons, right?
Yeah.
You just learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And all guys, when I meet somebody who I know has been in like a famous, you know, gunfight or confrontation or a world-class fighter, every one of those guys, whether it was Shamrock or Mir or Sugar Ray Leonard or some of the warriors that I've got to work with, I'll pull guys aside and I'll ask them questions to vet, validate, or inspire me to bring stuff to you, guys.
Yeah.
And I asked Sugar Ray after he let go, he fired Angelo. I don't think he was fired, but fired. And it was just a contract thing. But I said, hey, doesn't Angelo give you strategies and stuff, you know, like in the fight?
Right.
And he looks at me and he smiles and he goes, Tony, if Angelo, at this point in my career, if Angelo needs to tell me what to do inside the ring, he should be in there and I should be out on the other side of the road. You know, at a certain point, you know, basically it's almost like having a mentor or your dad go, you know, just give you a hit on the ass.
Right.
You know, you don't need him to go, hey, remember, turn your hip, right?
Right.
Stay on the outside of the southpaw. Like you don't need to tell Sugar Ray Leonard, you know, 15 years into his career, you know, keep your foot on the outside of the southpaw. Right. So you know, it's super, super interesting.
Can adrenaline be harnessed or controlled?
So this is interesting. This is great. Okay, I love these Q&As because that's where, like, I feel that again we talk about intellectual capital.
Yeah.
Like 40 years of in the community. There was a guy who came up with a book years ago. I'm not going to mention his name out of respect to him because I disagree completely with some of the research. But they did, so people do these clinical studies, guys. And in the research and the studies, what you'll see and what you'll hear are statements based on, hey, we tested 10 people or 100 people and this and that. So he did this study that said that basically they summed it up by saying, as your heart rate increases, your complex motor skills decrease. And so people with elevated heart rate, less control of our complex motor skills, oh shit. And you hear a lot of people talking about things like, I need to be using gross motor in high stress. And this is true, but I looked at that and I said, well, wait a minute. If you train your complex motor skills at an elevated heart rate, what I do know about the human body is that it adapts to anything. And that's why there's no fucking dinosaur at the FightTIPS studio, right? It's just two humans. Why? Dinosaurs couldn't adapt. And I don't mean this to be facetious. I mean, literally, humans are amazing at adaptation. The body is amazing. And you see that in adaptive athletes, things that they can do, people that were born with or lost use of their limbs. They're doing like shit that fully functional humans can't even do because they went, fuck it, I'm going to continue to work out.
Yeah.
You see amazing things, whether it's stories from the concentration camps to people overcoming fear or obstacles or whatever. And so I did a test with one of my fighters where I had his heart rate up at 180 plus beats per minute, running on a treadmill, jumping off the treadmill, going into complex motor skill flow drills. He was preparing for what was the equivalent at the time of a UFC fight for Canada. I forget what the acronym was back in the day.
Yeah.
But this guy, Phil, who was training, had absolutely no experience for this. And he got this title shot after one fight.
Yeah.
And I go, Phil, like, they want to see an English guy die in the French arena.
Right.
Like, this isn't, you know, he calls me up, coach, I just got a title shot.
Yeah.
I started laughing on the phone. Imagine, like, you're my fighter. And I
Yeah.
started laughing. And I'm like, dude, you've had one fight. How did you get a title shot? And so we talked, and I said, no, you can't take the fight. They just want to see you get hurt. You have no experience. He wanted to do it. He didn't ever want to become a world champion. He just wanted to do a few fights.
Yeah.
So he said, why can't I? I said, look, I'm not going to. You're a grown man with 3 kids. If you want to do it.
Right.
I said, but I want you to train me. I said, I will coach you, but only if you do what I say. And so listen to this. Imagine you calling me up, asking me to coach you, and I go, no sparring at all. I'm like, what? And what I had him do, I had him train with my buddy, Tom Campbell, that's sick. Like, remember the Rocky film where he fights Lundgren, and Lundgren's doing all the high-tech shit, and
Yeah.
Rocky's out. So Tom lives in the hills in Massachusetts. We sent Phil up there in the winter, like literally, this is before the Rocky movie, like doing that shit, like running in the snow, fucking carrying, like old school. This guy, like, Tom's like an old school, like that guy who lives in the hills.
Yeah.
I sent him there, and then what I had Phil do, I said, we got film of the Canadian champ, and he only ever stopped guys with ground and pound or ankle locks. So I said, Phil, the fight's in 2.5 months. You will not get this guy's experience. And this is a huge thing, is like, if we come back to street defense, you and I are walking around, the guy who's a professional mugger, rapist, carjacker, he's done reps of this leading up to this for years. So people go, yeah, I've been in 3 street fights or 30 street fights. That guy's been in like 20 years of that shit. He thinks differently than you. He sees this differently than you.
Yeah.
We can't be cavalier about that. Anyways, back to Phil. I go, no sparring. He's like, what? I go, you don't need to spar for this fight. What you need to do is stop him from the ankle lock and the ground and pound, and that will burn out all of his energy systems, and then he'll make a mistake. Because Phil was a decent grappler and a less decent striker. And I go, like, the champ at the time, this guy JP, had 12 fights and international fights. And you know this from the fight game. Like, the difference between you at 1 fight and you at 5 fights is huge in terms of your presence and your confidence. And then the difference from 5 to 10 is huge. And then 10 plus is huge. I said, you can't in any way synthetically recreate the ring presence and confidence. You have 1 fight though.
Right.
The only thing we can do, and there's and I draw all this shit from, again, 40 years of intellectual capital. My favorite Sun Tzu quote, he said, you know, the height of strategy is not attacking the troops, the enemy troops. It's not attacking the munitions. It's not attacking the food supply. The height of strategy is to attack your opponent's strategy. So if I know what your move is, like if I go, you know, the only way Shane's going to stop me is if he hits me with that weird uppercut he throws, and I figure out a way to always jam that, that'll put you in emotional flux. And then you'll start making mistakes. And that's like finding that loose thread in the fight game, because fighting is emotional. And isn't that cool?
That's good stuff.
And so what I did was, leading up for 2 months of the fight, we took our high gear, put Phil on the floor after class. So Phil was one of my instructors. I said, hey, who wants to help Phil train for his MMA fight? He's got a title shot.
Yeah.
You know? And of course, like always 10, 15 guys would stay late after class, and all they would do is mount him, Phil put the helmet on, and they were just told, punch him in the face as many times as you can.
Yeah.
And Phil just learned how to move and slip and wrap and intercept and spear and grab to the point where you couldn't hit him clean. He just got so sensitive to that. And then also getting an ankle lock, and you just have everybody try an ankle lock. You figured out every way to move his toes and ankle and move, and just because you know, like you know, over here it's an arm bar, but if you're half an inch this way or half an inch this way, you're out.
Right.
Like you know what you're doing.
Right.
And so he figured out every way to do that. And if you watch the fight, we have the fight film. I'll send it to you. 7 minutes and I think 14 or 37 seconds. Phil is getting whipped, thrown around the ring. He's mounted repeatedly. Bolduc, the champ, never hits him. Just throwing that double leg, dump him down, comes on top. Every shot is blocked or jabbed or parried.
Yeah.
And then he's tied up. Then they stand up and he beats him, hits him. So he's out struck, he's out kicked, he's out takedown. And then in round 7, they still had, it was pre no shoes. So they still had wrestling shoes on.
Yeah.
In round 7, they set up, they fall back, and Boldu goes for an ankle lock. But Phil has now done 2.5 months of defending from an ankle lock, no sparring. So what does he do? You see him literally go like this. That's so awesome. I'll do it here on the floor so everyone can see me. He goes like this. They're fighting. Boldu slips back with the ankle lock, and Phil goes like this. Literally sits back like this, and then goes wham and boots him in the face as the shrink wrap comes on. Wow, hits him in the face, stuns him. That sets up the finish, and Phil ends up choking him out, winning the title.
That's awesome.
But if you reverse engineer the strategy and the whole message, it was, I said, look, and I do what I did with that is how I teach people to defend themselves in the street. How when I work with Mir, when I work with fighters, when I teach cops, when I teach military, we look at dashboard, body cam, helmet cam, CCTV, and I go, this is how that's set up. So we're going to role play just that, and we're going to do that. And what that is happening is your brain, this is all brain-based training, your brain is creating mental blueprints for that type of movement. And if you improve your perception speed, you decrease your reaction time.
If you increase your mental.
If you improve your perception speed,
okay,
you decrease your reaction time. What that means is, if I'm standing here like this, and the most dangerous thing you can do now is elbow me in the face.
Right.
So what I do is I do this. I go, listen, I want to fight you. I've just now changed my perception speed.
Gotcha.
So now you go to elbow me. As soon as you start to elbow, I see all of the muscles flex here, and I'm already on the guy because I've improved my perception speed. I changed my reaction time.
Yeah.
But if I don't know all of that, because I'm waiting for you to go, what'd you say, motherfucker?
Right.
And I'm here like going, you want to fight? And now you elbow me, I eat that.
Gotcha.
Because I was 3 seconds ahead going, when we stand up, I'm going to sucker punch this guy.
That almost answers my question, but I'm going to wait. We still got 10 more minutes or
All right.
for a couple more.
I don't even know if I answered anyone's questions, so sorry. My wife's shaking. No, you haven't answered anyone's questions. I love this shit too much. Come train with us.
Yeah, right. I love it too.
This is kind of a 2-part question. Is there really a best martial art for street fighting? And then, like, the Gracies are known for saying that most street fights go to the ground. So they said that jiu-jitsu is the best.
Right.
So.
You know, it depends on the scenario. I love jiu-jitsu. A huge respect for the Gracies. They say that something like 90%, I think their quote is 90% of all fights end up on the ground. 100% of those 90% started on their feet.
Right.
Right? And so what that means is, right, you know, I mean, read between the lines.
Right.
There's a great time to take somebody to the ground. In this day and age with multiple assailants and with weapons and all of that, like that's not shouldn't be your choice tactic. And understand this, the selective listener will go, Tony just said Gracie Jiu-Jitsu isn't good. I didn't say that. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is amazing. They've proven it. It's amazing. Your system shouldn't default you to go somewhere. If I say the most dangerous thing you do is go to the ground with this guy here because his 3 friends are going to kick the fucking shit out of you, you know, the mother knocking out the guy. You ever seen that?
Mother?
It's a mother. I'll show it. We'll insert it in here. Is this still recording?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll insert that in there.
Yeah.
It's classic. I got it on my phone. It's a guy, her son is getting his ass kicked by a guy who's on top of him, and she's screaming, and she walks over, and she must have studied with David Beckham. She steps in and fucking bends this guy's head, you know, knocks him right out. I mean, just, yeah. So my point before everyone freaks out and sends ninjas after me is this. The most dangerous people so the most dangerous people in terms of the good guys are the people that study with an kind of an MMA philosophy. Got to know a little bit of wrestling. Got to know a little bit of submission. I got to know a little bit of striking, a little bit of kick. You don't. If you look at MMA and you look at jiu-jitsu, you will only see at the highest level and the lowest level maybe 5 moves being used.
Right.
Right. Rear strangle, armbar, ankle lock, guillotine,
Triangle. Yep.
the triangle. Right. You don't see it. Now there are guys, the Damian Mayas, right? You know, and other wizards, BJ Penn in his prime, people that, and even BJ, ground and pound. I mean, he just, the way he would. So you have guys that know the 500 moves in the counter for the counter, but when it came time to mono a mono shit, a lot of it goes out the window. And some of the most elite people can make shit work. But here's the problem: is like how good are those guys? I mean, they probably popped out of the womb with a gi on. I don't know, like they were like born doing this stuff. So I always have a maxim, and people misunderstand it. I don't mean it to be anything more than provocative to make you think. One is be careful what you practice. You might get really good at the wrong thing. And the other one is don't mistake the trademark for the truth. Who are you? Like, what's your next confrontation? And so if you did nothing and you said, I live in a sketchy area, you know, there's always this or that, I'd say, hey, listen, we need to work on your situational awareness, that D1, detect and avoid. We've got to work on your verbal defuse, because in the real world, you're going to have to talk your way out of situations. Mm-hmm. And these are all skills that transfer to business, to life, right? Yeah. And so defuse, the science and psychology of de-escalating stuff. And then if push comes to shove, you need D3, the defend. And force must parallel danger. So you want a system that's morally, ethically, and legally sound. Because for almost 40 years I've been studying real violence, I have drawn from, again, the whole startle flinch spear stuff was accidental doing a study. Mm-hmm. But that becomes the baseline of, hey, I don't want in trouble. The bad guy moves first, it triggers the flinch, the airbag deploys, I am now catching up to how much danger I'm in. And from this position here, you know, if you jump me and I go, oh, fuck, and I do that, I can headbutt you, I can bite you, I can knee you. Uppercut, elbow, go Google my Tony Blauer's Hicks Law. And I show these transition different ideas, if I'm Taekwondo, if I'm a grappler. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you select the solution to the problem that parallels the danger you're in a moral and ethical legal fashion. Right? And I think that's what some of the issues are people are cavalier about it. You'll see like videos like, yeah, if somebody does that, I'll just break his neck, you know, or I'll just shoot him, or I'll just, and I'm like, okay, but maybe not. Right. Maybe you shouldn't do that. So, so I hope I answered that question there. You asked one of the other questions, what's the best martial art? I honestly, and we talked about this before, I'll go into it real quick, is what we good to go? That noise? We got no choice, right? Yeah. We got a garage opening, so we'll wait for that to stop for audio there. So to help people understand how to make decisions is I created what's called the 4 categories. Category 1 is all martial arts. Every martial art goes into category 1. Category 2 are all combat sports. Anything where there's actually contact. Grappling, wrestling, sambo, MMA, Thai boxing, boxing. Category 3 are all reality-based self-defense systems. Then category 4 are violent encounters and only looking at who the opponent is. So Taekwondo, when they look at who the opponent is, it's another Taekwondo player. Yeah. And so they do Taekwondo versus Taekwondo, and that's how they're sparring. And in MMA, they'll do the same thing, or boxing, they'll do the same thing. And if it's 2 Krav guys, and people can disagree and argue with this, but like I've been studying this stuff forever, and it's more of a semantics thing. The thing is here, when you ask a Krav guy or anyone from RBSD, what would you do if the guy has a knife or a gun? There's an immediate answer that they pull out of a memorized toolbox. This is our answer. That's why Krav Maga is the best. This is our answer. That's why this art's the best. And I tell people, careful you practice, you might get really good at the wrong thing, because there is no evidence that those systems on a repeatable basis have solved the problem of violence. There's no dashboard video, CCTV, over and over again. There's a famous video recently of a Israeli soldier off duty in shorts and a t-shirt who stops a terrorist who's running around slashing people. The guy comes at him with a knife. He confronts the guy, comes at him with a knife. The Israeli, they're standing. You see him jump back off balance and just do like an off balance shitty push kick.
Yeah.
But was it effective? Yes. Was it technical? No.
Right.
Was it effective? So we have another. I love this maxim. Don't confuse technical with tactical.
Right.
In a real fight, you need to be tactical, not technical. Then the camera switches to CCTV in the store where he runs into the store to confront the guy. The guy's there trying to slash somebody with a knife. He breaks a shelf off. All the canned goods fall. He picks up the shelf and hits the guy with the shelf. And when he drops the guy with the shelf, a bunch of other people get courageous and jump him and beat the shit out of this guy.
Right.
The video went viral as Krav Maga expert stops. And I'm like, no, that was a courageous bystander who chose to confront evil. It had nothing to do with his style. And the style shouldn't, because now I had a bunch of Krav Maga guys just fucking Gatling gun of hate on my page. All like trying to poke about me. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with your confidence? You like, and I'm going, no. Like, I think that this guy's courage had more to do with the fact that he was in the Israeli army, because if I saw him with the knife came at him, do a parry and a straight punch and come in and do a Krav Maga technique that I see online, I'd go, fuck, that works.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. Awesome.
Right.
I'm not knocking Krav Maga guys. All martial arts have value. What I really believe is missing from the stuff is everything we've been talking about, which is why, and this drives people crazy, I'm not trying to get your students. I train trainers. I want trainers listening to this to go, oh, this might be the missing ingredient that makes my trainer safer. Here's a guy that has done 40 years, almost 40 years of research on this. How can I get this information to my trainers? So, if I had a stomach ache or a toothache, I'm not going to, my podiatrist, and I'm going to a pediatrician. I'm going to a doctor that specializes in ears, nose, throat, right? So I'm a specialist. Like, if you want to learn Krav Maga, don't come to me. If you want to learn Taekwondo, don't come to me.
Right.
And so what we do is we have this trainer program. That's all I'm trying to do is how to make the world safer, is try to get people to understand this. And again, we teach, our self-defense is taught like a paramedic or a firefighter teaching first aid and CPR. It's like a 6 to 8 hour course where you learn the 3Ds, human weapon principles, how to fucking spear the shit out of somebody and run. It's just stun and run. We're not teaching martial arts.
Right.
So don't worry, I'm not trying to take anyone's business. Just trying to make people safer.
I think we got time for one more quick question. And then,
Do you want to do yours?
I'll save mine for after.
Okay.
All right.
Um.
Hey, just an FYI, if you did on the Facebook, and I don't know if I can comment on the YouTube page.
Yeah.
But I will over the next couple of days go in and try and answer every question.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that'd be great.
I do that.
That would be fantastic. You hear that, guys? So make sure that you do leave your comments, because Tony will be back to answer them. Anything about the spear in particular?
Sorry, let's sort through.
No, too good.
We did have a bunch of questions about multiple assailants. So, Dan Millman, who wrote the Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and I recommend all of you read that if you haven't. But Dan Millman said, one of my favorite quotes, if you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you're outnumbered. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
If you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you are outnumbered.
Yeah. And
so what he was talking to, and which is a huge part of our system, is like people, I want to go train with Blauer. And the most important shit we do is fucking talk for 5 hours about fear management. Yeah. Because I can show you the coolest move, but if you can't pull the mental trigger on it,
right?
Everything is mindset at the end of the day. We say movement is mental. On game day, which could be your fight or your street fight, you can't change who you are athletically at all, ever. Right. You get in a fight tonight, man, and I go, dude, I want you to fucking doing some curls. Like, you go out and go, Tony said I gotta fucking do curls, and you get jumped. You can't do curls now. You gotta fight. Right. What's going to get you in and out of the fight is how you think. Right? And so the biggest thing when people everyone asks me like all the time, multiple sale. I go, can you fight one person? Will you protect yourself and your family against one person? And usually people go, yeah. I go, what about two? And they go, okay, 3. And what they're doing, I go, what's happening here is you're just getting confused by the math. And we tell people this is your simple, the first step towards dealing with multiple assailants is don't let the math beat you. It's a choiceless choice. If I'm willing to fight you to protect myself, and then there's 2 of you, I need to find a way to not get flanked and to introduce simple math. I've got 1 + 1 is 2. I need to introduce subtraction to the problem, and I need to subtract 1 guy. Who am I, if it's a choiceless choice and I've got to fight, I can't de-escalate it, who do I hit first and hardest so that maybe that guy runs or hesitates when he goes, oh fuck, this guy is gonna fight, right?
Yeah.
And so this might sound like a cavalier answer, but the answer isn't like, oh, drop to the ground and spin here and do this takedown to this guy, and when he falls here, like you can't choreograph multiple assailants.
Right.
It's about not getting flanked and doing your utmost to circumvent the contagious nature of a gang fight. And what I mean by that, and here's a real story, one of my students, and so all of my guys are super deep into the mindset shit. We practice this stuff, we rehearse that stuff, we do role playing with it to practice that teaching. So you see how fast when I line up with stuff, how quickly I process where you are, and how soon, like a muscle flex, I'm already moving, right? These are just drills you do. Improve your perception speed, decrease your reaction time. So one of my students, his girlfriend says, hey, I'm going to the store to get some milk and eggs or what have you. They live in a 2-story apartment building. She's been gone too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's like, oh, that's weird. This is in the days way before cell phones.
Right.
And he goes and he looks out the window, no air conditioning, hot summer day out the window. And she's surrounded by 4 or 5 guys who are doing the, hey baby, what's going on? And she's there with her bags, like going, man, hey guys. And he looks out the window and sees this. It's like West Side Story, right out the window. He goes, hey, guys, leave her alone. And he runs out. Right now, in another day and age, maybe you're hitting 911 or you're grabbing your nunchakus or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He comes running out. These 5 guys are standing there. And so one of the things we talk about when we do our, when we talk about de-escalation and choice speech, or how do we create conscience and accountability, which is meaning, like if I say something to you that creates conscious accountability, you might go, man, I really don't want to do this now that you said that.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing is how to create rapport, how to use phrasing that understands the distinction between sympathy and empathy. Empathy triggers conscience and accountability. Heavy shit, different in a second, really fast, like YouTube Live. You guys are gonna have to listen to this, maybe Google some of these, get some good definitions, but listen to this. Empathy versus sympathy. He comes outside, the 5 guys are posturing, they're like this, standing there like this. He walks right through them, stands with the girl behind him, and he looks at me who the obvious leader is. You can just tell by everyone's posture. And he goes, hey, can I ask you a question, man? Like, it's not like, dude, get out of here, get away from my girlfriend. He says, hey, can I ask you a question? And the guy's like, doesn't even say anything, just gestures. He goes, you got a sister?
Yeah.
And the guy goes, how would you feel if this is your sister, man? How would you feel?
Yeah.
And the guy's like looks at him and looks at her, looks at him, and elbows the guy next to him, they walk off. Now that was his girlfriend. What if now this is the psychology of verbal de-escalation. What if he had said to the guy, what would you do if this was your girlfriend? Hey man, what would you do if this was your girlfriend?
Right.
When I say what would you do, what happens? You visualize violence.
Right.
But if I say how would you feel, you can't visualize violence. You start thinking about conscience and accountability. I'd feel shit if that was my sister.
Right.
My sister would be scared. She'd come home crying. I'm a fucking jerk. Let's leave.
Yeah.
Now it could have turned into a fight, but because we teach a moral, ethical, legal system, my students get exposed to that type of thinking. Had something escalated, he would have had to fight, but he did the moral, ethical, legal thing first, and the guy fucked off. Using empathy versus sympathy. Don't feel bad for me. Feel bad about what you're doing. Feel what we're going through right now.
Powerful.
Heavy, right?
Very powerful. All right, guys, we're going to close this up now. One final question for you, Tony. So after the first time we met up, and I got to trying out the spear as best I could. It was all my own on the heavy bag, so I was imagining only with myself.
Was that the video you posted?
Yeah,
That was good.
that's when I first started, practicing with it. Do you feel that by over practicing it, overstimulating yourself in that scenario, that you're going to become desensitized to someone throwing a sucker punch? Because I mean, an example is I've taken so many jabs to the face now, it doesn't hurt when I get hit in the nose anymore. Sometimes I'll eat a couple jabs so I can land an overhand right.
Right.
Is there ever that possibility that I practice it so much that when that counter punch comes in, I go, I know what to do here, and I'm too relaxed that I don't have that?
And what would you do with the alternative? Like, because you practice it so much, what's the alternative?
No, I guess it still would be.
Right, like there's no downside to choosing safety or to moving first or to converting the flinch. So here's an interesting thing. I've had people like say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why would you want to practice flinching? I go, you don't ever practice flinching. We're not practicing flinching. We're practicing converting the flinch. So what we're doing is if you made me flinch right now, I would go flinch, and then faster than either of us could see, my hand would shoot out, finger splayed outside 90 into our spear stance.
Is that a conscious thought at that point?
No, now that's like Pavlovian. So if I go, Shane, nice meeting you, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a trick, but your body did. I could do that 3 times, maybe until you started to do it there.
Yeah.
You see the hand started to move. And so the whole thing here is that if we start, let's say we spar after, and I go like, and I'm here, and I go, and I do that, you're going to do that movement just because you're wearing gloves. You're not going to splay your fingers and do the spear. Your hands will come up. That's how I hit you to the body. Right. So you never, have you ever been faked out or fainted?
Yeah.
Sparring?
Yeah.
Right. And so you've been training how many years sparring?
17 now.
17 years. And I bet if you're sparring somebody who's good, who you got to watch out for, you got to respect his movement, that he's here like this and he goes, and he does that, like you just did it there.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. Like you're still at that point going, fuck, where the hand will go down and punch you in the face. So you can't ever, if a stimulus gets introduced too quickly, your brain can't correct it. Physiology is always faster than psychology. The physiology happens first. So if I go, brace yourself, this is gonna hurt, and I fucking put a hot iron on you, you're like, you eventually get desensitized if I torture you long enough. You go, here we go, right? But the first time it's introduced, you'll always flinch, you'll always react. So the truth of the matter is, you never get desensitized. You can in a training protocol. You can in a drill.
Yeah.
So we had a drill once, and I call this the Adam LeClaire. Adam, if you're watching this, we have a drill named after you. Where we were wearing our high gear suits, and what it was full. Everyone's in full kit. Violent shove. Fuck you, man. Whoa, hands come up. Violent shove, overhand. And what it was is you had to take the shove, take the second shove, and then you had to flinch and convert. But because we're doing gear, it was like full impact, full speed. So what you were trying to do is instead of just practicing tactical shit, and practice the primal, the protective, the tactical, because that's real life. In other words, we wanted skills. So when you've done sprints, right? Why does your coach say, I want you to sprint here and then a 2-minute rest and then sprint again? I want you to do that 10 times. Why does he make you do the rest?
You want to get back to 100%.
You want you to get back to 100%. You want your technique good. Mm-hmm. But is your technique good in a real violent encounter? Do you have chances to rest? Can you fix your balance? Can you go, oh, my shoelaces I'm wearing flip-flops now. Can I put my boxing shoes on?
Right.
So in a real fight, we always practice off balance on purpose, because in a real fight, you're off balance emotionally, psychologically, physically. So what we did is we would look at real video and then reverse engineer the position. Like when have you ever practiced throwing an elbow back fist from a chair? Never. But guess what? If you wanted to protect yourself, this would be if I jumped in your car at gunpoint, you would have to fight from here. But you've never done a gun disarm like sitting in a car.
Wow.
So, you talk about like undercover cops who might have a gun pulled on them and they're doing like undercover shit, but they always do stuff in a mat room and it's ridiculous. And I go, guys, we were doing something with the air marshals. They're practicing in a mat room. I go, what's your arena? They're like, what? What's your arena? Airplanes? What's the distance between seats? 23 inches. put tape on the floor, and that's your arena. You have 23 inches. You can't do it in a mat room. Like, people don't think this way.
Wow.
So you can't overdo the startle flinch. You know, so if I hit your car hard enough and it's a fake accident, but it's hard enough to deploy the airbag, there's no danger.
Right.
It's just going to cost you to fucking, you know, you got to go to the GM or whoever and go, yeah, I fucking hit my car with a sledgehammer to see if this actually worked. And they're going to charge you $500, whatever it is, to fix it. But there, like I always tell people, hashtag choose safety. There's no danger in choosing safety. So if you went boo and I went, oh fuck man, and you went, oh, tricked you. But if the day that I do that and there's a real attack, my fingers are out.
Right.
But the Adam LeClaire story, to finish that, we're going around and around, and Adam didn't want to stop and be the guy that goes, hey, I'm hyperventilating, I need some water, I need to hydrate. And so shove, and we're doing round robin. There's like 12 or 15 people in the class. And we've been going for like an hour in gear. Guys are dehydrated. And we go up, and guy shoves it, and he goes back, and his hands drop back, and the guy steps in and goes, wham, and throws the punch, and he moves a little bit, and the punch slams, and the forearm comes in and goes pop and hits him in the brachial and stuns him. He falls straight down on the ground on his back. I run over to him. I'm like over the top of him like this. His head's right here, and I'm like in this position, and I can see his eyes are opening. And he looks at me, and he looks up and down. I go, dude, are you okay? And he says this upside down. He goes, I was too tired to flinch. True story. But here's the thing: is what we were trying to do. The point being is, if we did shove haymaker, you would start to get lactic acid buildup.
Right.
So would I. My punch would get sloppier. Your spear would get sloppier. Eventually, what would happen if I'm here like this and you go to back fist me now. As soon as you start to move, right, I'm on you. Yeah. But if we did that a bunch of times, or you made me sprint and do some push-ups, now you go to back fist me, and this would happen. Right. And then eventually, boom, this would happen, and I'd go, and you finally go, how about I got you? I go, it took you 10 minutes. Right? That's not the point, is did we get hit or not? It's what's our brain recording. What are we learning about movement? What are we learning about energy systems and pre-contact cues, right? If we always practice like the sprints where we're fresh, right?
Got to train tired.
Right, so think about this. Let's wrap on this because you're a huge boxing fan, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe you're not. Are you?
I am, yeah.
Good. I thought so. Back in the day, when fights were bare fist, how long were fights, you know?
They were going like 70, 80 rounds.
70, 80 rounds.
Yeah.
100 rounds, some of them.
Yeah.
Right? How's that possible? You know? So, like, there were times where they didn't have like 3-minute rounds. You just fought. You just kept fighting, and then they had rounds. And these would last 70, 80 rounds because people don't realize that boxing gloves were developed to protect the hand, not the head. So people who don't understand that think, oh, that was to protect your face. But back in the day, you know, we used to fight like this. And so if you punched me, I would stop it with the thick part of my head. Have you ever sprained your hand?
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever hit a bag for like 2-3 weeks after, maybe a month after? No. You sprain your hand bad, it's like, ah.
Yeah.
And so when your hands get sprained in the first 2 minutes of your first round, because it's knuckle on skull or elbow, you're punching like this, ow. Like you're never fucking dropping a shot in anymore. And so the idea, we'll pause for the garage, stand by. So like the connection, guys, if you can still hear me, the connection to what I was saying before about the street stuff is when we start everything fresh from the sport perspective, I get it. You're gonna fight for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and you got a 1 minute rest, and we all get acclimated to that, and then we see who's more mentally tough and whose aerobic capacity is more developed.
Yeah.
But you know, when you saw like some of the challenge matches that went 30 minutes, 40 minutes straight, you didn't see the finesse and technique because now the engines were different. The risk, the fear, the challenges were different. What I did is I kind of, again, built this whole system against just making you safer what goes on in the street. And I don't have all the answers, but after 40 years, I think we've got a bunch of good answers. And the most interesting thing about our stuff is I think it's cerebral, it's intelligent, it's brain-based. But the thing that I've gotten to do and experience is the people that protect you and me, the cops, and the people that keep bad guys downrange, the military, they've embraced us. And I get feedback like from them, stuff that I could never get like from you, unless you said, that's it, I'm joining the military.
Right.
I'm joining the law enforcement. And that wasn't something by design, that was serendipity. That was, they discovered us in the early 90s. And I think that's significant because I would, those guys move towards the danger. And I'm not trying to use that to like, upsell something, just to say like, that's the vetting. That was the legit vetting process of this.
Facts are facts. Tony, thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it.
We didn't fucking hit each other.
We did, I know, thank God.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for joining in and for your questions. That's now 2.5 hours that we posted to Fight Tips of Tony, but you got what, 40 plus years experience, so there's much more.
A little bit more. I would love to, if you're interested, another time is shoot some drills, shoot some techniques, specific movements, and a lot of the basic movements, finger splayed outside 90, we got videos online with that. I know you very graciously told people about our camp in the last video.
Yeah.
July 8th and 9th, if you want to come train with us 2 days. If you're going to be in Vegas for the Super Show, if you're there for one of my idols, Ben Urquidez is getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Maya Super Show. So if you're coming into town for that, you can come to the camp 1 day, 2 days. We have our scenario trainer course going on the 7th. If you're real interested in that stuff, but all our stuff's online.
Cool, and that's on blauerspear.com.
Blauerspear.com.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to try my best to make it there. If that's about it. Until next time, I'm Shane, and this is Tony Blauer. Fight tips for the underdogs.
I'm sorry. You're so